Which celebrity went on the fastest, hardest and most destructive downward spiral from their peak? I mean, Oscar Pistorius was a pretty sharp fall from Paralympian champion / role model to spouse murderer. TJ Miller called a bomb threat on a train he was on when he was rejected by someone he was trying to flirt with. I remember when he had a meltdown on Twitter over people's reactions to the Emoji Movie. That is not the hill you wanna die on, the defending Emoji Movie part. He lost part of his brain. True story. Without going into details, I met him in an OR while he still had his bandages from brain surgery. Aaron Hernandez played tight end for the New England Patriots. Fresh off a new contract, killed his friend, found guilty, then took his own life during the appeal. Pretty sure taking his life was meant to secure a payday for his family, as they would have been entitled to his earnings once he filed his appeal. Chris Benoit. I may not be a wrestling fan anymore, but damn what a tragedy. No one can truly comprehend how wild that night was. They were doing a live tribute show the same time the news came out that he committed the double murder suicide. It's interesting to see in hindsight that some of the wrestlers had an inkling that he could be responsible. Regal is the most prominent. Apparently JBL said something like, "You don't think he did it, do ya?" And Regal thought that, fuck, he might have. So all his bits talking about Benoit are about his work as a wrestler, rather than as a person. Because he's realized that he might have murdered his entire family. I think Regal revealed recently that his wife had banned Benoit from visiting their house because she had a bad feeling about him. Jaya Karangi. She started modeling in 1978 at age 18, reached her peak in 1979, and was considered the supermodel. But by 1980 her career was already in steep decline due to her hardcore drug addiction alongside her erratic personality making her a difficulty to work with. By 1981 her career was basically over at only age 21. She tried to make multiple comebacks but it never stuck, and officially left the modeling industry for good in 1983. She ended up working as a store clerk and even a prostitute for some time, but in 1986 she ended up dying of AIDS at age 26, suspected to be caused by contaminated heroin needles. She was in such poor condition when she died then, when the doctors picked her up the skin fell off her back. No one in the fashion industry attended her funeral or even knew she had died. She fell just as quickly as she rose. In the end no one she thought cared about her and New York ended up being there for her during her final months except for the friends she made in rehab. Though through the demise of Jaya brought about the rise of Cindy Crawford. Cindy and Jaya share a lot of resemblance, so many photographers would use her in place of Jaya because she was far easier to work with. She was even nicknamed Baby Jaya at the beginning of her career. First time I ever saw Angelina Jolie was in the HBO movie Jaya on HBO. About Jaya Karangu. That's what that movie is about. I've never seen it, nor know anything about it, but just assumed it was a random movie about a girl named Jaya. Ian Watkins went from frontman of a world famous rock band to doing 30 years for child sex offenses. According to Vice, when GCHQ was called in to help the police access encrypted files on Watkins' computer, they found that one of the passwords he'd used was "I fuck KIDZ." Man had zero shame whatsoever. The whole Megalals thing doesn't help it either. He even had his sentence extended because while already in prison he was found to be trying to groom a young woman into abusing her child. Armie Hammer. And apparently Ezra Miller is just batshit. Odge Simpson. Reddit must be younger than I thought. How he's not one of the top answers is mind blowing to me. Edit was on about 75 upvotes after 2 hours. Suppose the fact he didn't actually go to prison may mean he's not quite as high, but still, his career ended overnight. It was insane at the time because he was widely known as a good dude, former NFL player, actor. He'd been a commentator for football games for a while, then bam, accused of brutally murdering his wife, and likely only got acquitted because the cops were incompetent. The prosecution was insanely bad. Ito had no control of the court. The closest thing to a witness for the prosecution was a racist, lying cop. Mark Salling. The guy who played Puck in Glee. Maybe not the biggest star, but he was a fan favorite on a huge show. Got caught with child pornography. Pleaded guilty, then hung himself. That's a pretty hard downward spiral. His crimes even retroactively ruined his character on Glee. They made a lot of jokes about Puck being creepy, which aged well. Wasn't there a literal episode subplot where he and another character were going to make a sex tape until they were told it would be illegal since they were underage? Yeah, him and Lauren Zizes were going to make a tape because she wanted to be famous like Kim K. Early 2010s TV was so wild in retrospect. I always thought it got calmer after the early 2000s. John Wilkes Booth. This has got to be the top. No other actor has fallen so much after they literally killed the president and became the most wanted man in the country. A quote from British sitcom Only Fools and Horses, Gandhi. He had one great movie, then nothing. Tila Tequila going from bisexual reality TV vixen to Nazi was pretty astonishing. In the same thread, Nguyen suggested her hatred of Jews was so intense that she would be willing to die on behalf of a second Holocaust. There are only two things in this world for which I would gladly sacrifice my own life: the destruction of all Jews and the preservation of the white race. Does she know she's not white? I think she had some sort of massive head trauma between when she got famous and when she really went off the rails. This is why I'm terrified of brain damage. I'm in a line of work where people can threaten to knock you out at any time, and it's scary to think that it could change who I'm entirely. You know, when you're sometimes thinking about consciousness and how one day you'll be dead and this will all be gone. What if that form of consciousness dies with brain damage and it begins a new one? I'm in a line of work where people can threaten to knock you out at any time. In my experience, this could be retail or food service. Kevin Spacey getting revealed to be a predator, using his sexuality as an excuse, getting fired from his projects, and then posting an insane supervillain level YouTube video as Frank Underwood, basically blaming the viewers for being complicit. What in the name of Kevin Spacey's self-made Christmas Eve video message to try to get back on House of Cards is going on here? Sean. The Good Place. I think of Chris Farley. His SNL career started in '92. His real break came with Tommy Boy in '94. Dead by '98 at 33 years old. Horribly addicted to drugs, alcohol, food, and other impulse-related stuff. Probably gained 100 pounds in his 6-year run. Odd on a speedball, as everyone seems to. Everybody of that era claims he was the funniest guy they've ever known. And most of them talk about being frustrated both by his lack of any self-worth, despite how beloved he was, and a feeling of inevitability about his early demise. Obviously Chris wasn't destructive like some of the other scumbags mentioned on this thing. He was simply self-destructive. People like to compare him to John Belushi. They had pretty much the same self-destructive trajectories. Both fat dudes. Both highly energetic performers. But as people I think they were very different. I think he's more comparable to Robin Williams. They both had this like insatiable need to make people laugh. And they both had this superhuman energy. By all accounts Chris, like Robin, was an incredibly sweet and sensitive person in private life. Apparently he'd spend a lot of time volunteering at children's hospitals in Madison, Wisconsin. And he didn't even talk about it. I've heard a million takes on Farley, and it's always heartbreaking, and telling that 25 years later, people still talk about it and can't get over it. He was my idol. I was a funny fat kid who played football. When he passed, my mom refused to tell me because she knew I would be destroyed. I heard it on the radio while leaving a birthday party. My mom was right. R.I.P. Chris. I still watch your movies and laugh at everyone. Open bracket. Chris Farley is one of my favorites, and I'm still sad to this day that his presence is not in the world. I was really hoping he would make it because he was smart and funny and talented. Tommy like Wingy. Has everyone forgotten Charlie Sheen? Did #WINNING stop winning? What about Tiger Blood and a bevy of porn stars? He went down so hard they made a series vaguely based on it and cast him in the lead role. Well, the Ops post was about fastest downward spiral. Charlie Sheen was a big time actor, but it took him many years of drug abuse to self-destruct. He definitely qualifies for celebrities who destroyed their own careers, but he isn't in the fast downward spiral category. He was on the path to the spiral for decades, but the spiral itself was fast. He went from one of the hottest actors on TV, making over $2 million an episode, to unemployable practically overnight. Mason Greenwood went from being effectively the top young prospect at Man United to never touching a professional football field again. F him edit. For those who don't know, Mason Greenwood was a young homegrown prospect for one of the biggest football teams in the world, being heralded as the next great for the team. That is, until one night his girlfriend came out with dozens of pictures, videos, texts and audio files of Mason being an abusive monster. He's done. Who didn't even think about this one? Good choice. F him. Wow, tell what a scumbag. Plus the posts included images and video of apparent injuries, as well as audio where a woman tells a man whom she called Mason, "I don't want to have sex." To which the man replies that he doesn't care, and when told to stop again, he replied, "I asked you politely, and you wouldn't do it. So what else do you want me to do?" The man later says, "Push me again one more time and watch what happens to you. I will never fucking understand this. You are a young, rich and famous professional athlete. You can probably find plenty of women that will consensually have sex with you on any given night. Yet you rape someone and throw all of it away. It just boggles my mind. It's so easy to just not fucking do it. You know Dikembe Mutombo used to walk into a crowded bar and ask loudly who wants to sex Mutombo, which is ridiculous. But if you think about it, he's actively asking for consent with multiple witnesses. Very smart 10/10ths would sex Mutombo." Ezra Miller is doing a speedrun on this ATM. Every Ezra Miller headline is just a mad lib at this point. Ezra Miller commits felony in random location while talking about whatever. You just write something. I propose we start referring to Miller as Florida them. Everyone is mentioning modern celebrities and forgetting historical standards. In all honesty, it's got to be John Wilkes Booth. The man was from a prestigious acting family and not only famous from his own skill and roles on stage, but became seriously wealthy too and was in demand across the country. People knew him. He was 26 years old and a goddamn superstar. But he had sympathies with the Confederacy and planned to kidnap Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, with the help of conspirators to end the war more favorably. When they surrendered, he was enraged, changed the plan to kill Lincoln and several high-ranking officials with the help of his conspirators, and make the South rise up and welcome him as a hero. And then he killed Lincoln. This wonderkind acting behemoth, barely past his mid-20s, with a famous family and a huge amount of prestige and wealth to his name, killed the President of the United States in the pursuit of a delusional belief that he could change the outcome of an already decided war. He not only dissolved his own reputation in an instant, as both the Union and the former Confederate states were left utterly horrified by his act, but was killed within 2 weeks of an extensive manhunt and took several hours to die a painful, humiliating death. And on top of that, he removed a great reformer who could have positively rebuilt the former Confederate states and help eliminate the institutions left over, having him replaced with a more neutral leader who disagreed with the idea of Reconstruction and ended it prematurely, setting back the redevelopment of the South, while also causing it to severely regress to such an extent that it still isn't fully resolved from the Civil War nearly 2 centuries later. That, friends, is the fastest, hardest and most destructive downward spiral of a celebrity from their peak. I had no idea John Wilkes Booth was so famous. I always thought he was just some crazy rando. His downfall was just that bad. Wiped out the prestige of the whole damn family.